Today we're playing Mortal Kombat. No, not that one. Nope, not that one either. Nope. Nuh-uh. No. Nope. That's not it. Nah, not that one. No. That's it. That's the one. There have been so many Mortal Kombat games released over the years. I want you guys to think back. Think long and hard. Remember your first time playing a Mortal Kombat game. Was it one you rented from Blockbuster as a kid? Was it one that you bought off a Steam sale more recently just to see what the game was like? Have you never even played one before? For me, there are two childhood memories related to Mortal Kombat that really stand out. One of them pretty fondly, the other not so much, but still good for a laugh anyway. One of my earliest memories of Mortal Kombat, I must have been about 7 or 8 at the time I think. My parents took me with them to a party at their friend's house. These friends had 3 kids, they're all a bit older than me, and they had a Super Nintendo. They had so many cool games that we didn't have at our place though. It was always really fun and exciting getting to go there and try all these different games out. One game they had that I hadn't tried out yet was Mortal Kombat 3. So that night, while my parents were out the back partying and having a good time, I curled up on the couch in the spare room and played Mortal Kombat until I could barely keep my eyes open. I played for hours, engrossed in the violence, the carnage, and all the unique characters. I just loved everything about it, except of course how bad I was at it. Eventually though, my weary eyes could stay open no longer. This ended my first run-in with Mortal Kombat, but it wouldn't be my last. I'd think about that game all the time, hoping we could go back there and play it again. I loved it so much. The second memory, as I mentioned before, not such a fond one, but my sister loves to bring it up any chance she gets because she just thinks it's hilarious. I was not much older than in the previous story. My sister and I were spending the day at my dad's house. We're playing Mortal Kombat 2 on the Super Nintendo. I'm not sure where it came from actually, because as far as I remember, we never owned any Mortal Kombat games ourselves. But I don't know, I could be wrong, it was like 20 years ago. Anyway, we'd been playing for a while now, and this particular match I decided I was going to play as my favourite character, Baraka. And Rhiannon, my sister, she was going to play as one of her favourites. It was either Katana or Melina. I can't actually remember who she preferred. The match had just started and she'd got me backed against the wall already. She started using the leg sweep over and over and over and over. I can still hear it in my head, the constant "what" sound as Baraka was being tripped over constantly. Now being a full-grown adult, I realise I could have easily just jumped over her and continued on fighting, but back then I was just a dumb kid. I tried over and over again to run towards her and attack, but she was just too quick. She just kept tripping me over until she beat me. Round 1 was done. I was pretty upset by this. I've always been a bit of a sore loser, but this was fine. There was still another round to go. I still had a chance. But not for long. Rihanna knew exactly what she had to do. She backed me into the corner right away and just went to work sweeping the leg again, laughing at my misfortune. I was getting more and more upset as the match went on, and she could see it. She thought it was the funniest thing. Anyway, long story short, she beat me 2-0 just from tripping me over, and this of course resulted in me screaming and crying and going to tell Dad that she was cheating and it wasn't fair. I expected him to be able to do something to make it better somehow, I guess. So yeah, not my proudest moment, that's for sure. It still gets brought up every now and then at family gatherings for a bit of a laugh. Mortal Kombat is an important series to video game history. Spanning over 3 decades now, there have been 14 games in the series. This doesn't include the remakes, the reboots, multiple movies, animated feature-length films, animated series, live-action series, comic books, and even a card game that was once called a worse clone of Magic the Gathering. So I think it's safe to say that Mortal Kombat is an incredibly beloved franchise with a very dedicated fan base. But Mortal Kombat has also had more than its fair share of controversies, more than most other video game series, excluding maybe Grand Theft Auto? I'm not sure, that's just a guess though. But before we get to the controversies, why don't we talk a little bit about what Mortal Kombat actually is for those of you who live under a rock. Created by the team of Ed Boon and John Tobias and developed by Midway, it was released on arcades back in 1992. There were 2 main things that helped the series stand out from its competitors at the time. One being the use of digitized graphics, which involved taking real-life footage of actors performing the actions and converting that footage into game sprites. Similar to the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy, except this used real-life footage rather than 3D models. The other, more important way that Mortal Kombat separated itself from the competition was the excessive violence. The majority of the punches and kicks in the original arcade port of the game would produce big spurts of blood. This was unfortunately censored in the Super Nintendo version and turned into a greyish mist. The same goes for the Sega port, however, at least in that version there was a cheat code to re-enable the blood. Now a lot of blood was already somewhat rare for video games back in 1992, But the thing that really pushed Mortal Kombat over the edge into full-blown controversy were the fatalities. The winner of the match has the opportunity to quickly input a button combination to perform a special finishing move called a fatality. These are designed to be as brutally violent as possible. Just have a look at a few of these. Now, compared to today's standards, these first iterations of the fatalities don't look that bad at all. But back in the early 90s, this was unheard of, unimaginable, and it had parents and politicians furious. A US congressional hearing on video game violence was held in 1993, the year of my birth, in which Senators Herb Kohl and Joe Lieberman attempted to illustrate why there needs to be a government regulation on video games. They did this by showing off clips of the Sega game Night Trap, as well as clips from the arcade version of Mortal Kombat. In part due to this, not long after, the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or ESRB, would be introduced in Canada and the US. The ESRB assesses games before release and provides them an age-based rating which determines the age someone must be to purchase the games. Shortly after, in 1995, here in Australia, we would follow suit by introducing the Australian Classifications Board. Not only did Mortal Kombat's extreme violence lead to the introduction of the Australian Classification Board, but many years later in 2011, it would again lead to changes being made around classifications. After the release of Mortal Kombat 9 in 2011, Australia officially banned the game, due to the explicit depictions of dismemberment, decapitation, disembowelment, and other brutal forms of slaughter. That is a direct quote. This decision was appealed by the publishers, Warner Bros. Interactive. That appeal was rejected though. This decision caused an uproar of disapproval by the Australian public, and 2 years later in 2013, due to this, among other reasons, the Australian Classification Board introduced an adults-only rating for games in Australia, and at the same time overturned the banning of Mortal Kombat 9, instead choosing to give it an adults-only rating. I remember this being such a big deal back then. I was really disappointed by the fact I wasn't going to get to play Mortal Kombat 9. 2 years I had to wait. So I've told you what Mortal Kombat is, but I realise I still haven't mentioned what it's all about. This entry in the series takes place at the 10th Mortal Kombat tournament, a fighting tournament that's held once every generation. The tournament was first implemented by the Elder Gods after Outworld had grown too powerful and planned to invade Earthrealm. Oh yeah, in the Mortal Kombat universe, there are 6 realms which are essentially different planes of existence. These realms are Earthrealm, which is basically our universe, Outworld, the evil realm I guess you could say, Edenia, which is kind of like a nice peaceful realm named after the Garden of Eden, Order Realm, which is the realm for nerds, Chaos Realm, which practices the religion of chaos and has no governmental bodies. Basically anything goes there. And lastly, there's the Netherrealm, which is this world's version of Hell. I could go on about this stuff for days. I absolutely love the lore of Mortal Kombat. Honestly, probably more than the games themselves. Often I play the games just to get more out of the story, since I've never really been the biggest fan of fighting games personally. The Elder Gods have made a rule that a realm may only invade another realm after winning 10 consecutive Mortal Kombat tournaments. Outworld have won the previous 9 tournaments thanks to the sorcerer Shang Tsung and his strongest warrior, the 4-armed Shokan, Goro. Shokans are a race of half-human, half-dragons by the way. So the stakes are high. If Outworld wins another tournament, they have free reign to invade Earthrealm. You have the choice of playing as one of 7 fighters in this first iteration of the series. There is Liu Kang, a Shaolin monk whose only intent is to win the tournament to restore balance to the realms. Liu Kang would go on to become the main protagonist of many other future Mortal Kombat games as well as most other Mortal Kombat media. We have Johnny Cage, the Hollywood actor and martial artist who just wants to prove himself and show off his talents. Next up is the Lin Kuei warrior Sub-Zero. He was invited to join the tournament by Shang Tsung himself. Sub-Zero's ending story says he joined the tournament after being offered a large sum of money from one of Shang Tsung's many enemies. However, this motivation is never mentioned again in any future Mortal Kombat storyline. Everybody's favourite is up next, Scorpion, the undead Shirai Ryu ninja, whose only motive in joining the tournament is killing Sub-Zero because he believes him to be responsible for killing him as well as his family and clan. You can also play as a literal god, well, a god who turned himself mortal anyway. Raiden, the god of thunder, was invited to the tournament by Shang Tsung and could not resist the opportunity to fight. So if you've seen the latest Mortal Kombat movie to come out, you're probably a big fan of this next character. Next up we have Kano, the nastiest thug in the Black Dragon clan. I love his story, it's so funny. He only got in the tournament by accident. He was being chased by the special forces and he just jumped into this boat that happened to be heading to the tournament. Last but not least, we have the only playable female character in the game, Lieutenant Sonya Blade. Sonya and her team were the special forces group who was chasing Kano. Once they arrived on the island, they were ambushed by Shang Tsung and his army. All of them except Sonya were captured, so Sonya has no choice but to participate in the tournament in hopes of freeing her team. The gameplay of Mortal Kombat is a simple 2D fighting game. First to win 2 rounds is the winner of the match, and as I mentioned, the winner has a chance to perform a fatality at the end of the match, with a bit of fun and a boost to your points. So with all that explanation out of the way, let's get on with the recap. So I played through the entire game and recorded it off stream without face cam or without a microphone, thinking this would be a good idea to help me build up a back catalogue of games, because I can't stream super regularly at the moment. But before you get upset with me and close out of the video, I decided this wasn't good enough. I like having the live clips to jump to in the videos for a bit of change of pace. Seeing my reactions to certain things makes it a more enjoyable video in my opinion, so I beat the game a second time live on stream. In fact, you can watch the entire stream under my live tab on my channel. But keep in mind, the start was a bit rough. I was having so many technical issues that day and I was getting a bit annoyed. Alright, with all that out the way as well, let's actually get on with the recap. I started out by selecting my favourite character from this game, Scorpion. My first match was against Sonya, and as expected for the first fight of the game, it was very easy. I finished her off barely taking a hit. I did notice pretty quickly though that the controls were not quite what I was expecting. As big of a fan of Mortal Kombat as I am, I had actually never played the original before starting this series. It's also been many years since I've played 2 or 3 on the Super Nintendo, but I remember them feeling pretty smooth. This game on the other hand, it feels quite stiff. I felt like my inputs weren't always registering if I mashed buttons too fast, and often I wasn't able to perform special moves when it felt like it should have worked. This was going to take a bit of getting used to. Next up, we had a match against Sub-Zero, my colour swap twin. This fight did not go so well. I'll use the excuse that I was trying to explain something to the stream at the time and not paying full attention, but honestly that's probably not the case. I'm just not very good at fighting games. I lost this round 2-0. My second attempt went far better though, winning 2-0. Round 3 was against Liu Kang, who's looking pretty different from future iterations in this game, missing his signature red headband and black and red pants, opting instead for plain black pants and no headband. He's a bit of a bland character honestly. The fight started out strong, I beat him in round 1 very easily. Round 2 was a lot closer, but somehow he managed to sneak a win, so it was up to the final round to decide the winner. Unfortunately, that winner would not be me. I lost again. The second attempt at beating Liu Kang went better though. I cheesed him a little bit in the first round, constantly using my spear and uppercutting him while he was stunned. The second round, I didn't want to do that again, so I tried fighting him fairly, but that was going badly and I was about to lose, so I spammed some buttons and used some spears and managed to somehow pull off the win. Next up, we had a minigame, a round of Test Your Might. In these mini-games, you just have to spam the ever-loving shit out of all the buttons to build up your strength meter. I did that and managed to make it over the little line, but then time ran out and nothing happened. I was a bit confused, but it turns out, once you get over the line, you have to hit the block button to make your character actually strike the wood. So no bonus points for me. Our next fight was against the God of Thunder himself, Raiden. Round 1 went to Raiden. I got my ass kicked. Round 2, I held it together and managed to squeeze out a win. So again, it was up to the final round to determine the winner. I was feeling the pressure and I took it out on Raiden by swearing at him and abusing him a little bit. Fuck off, Raiden, you piece of shiz. I can say fuck, but not shit apparently. Suck, Raiden. But that wasn't enough to throw him off his game apparently, and he beat me 2-1. This was when I decided to try out a new character. Not a big change visually, I'm going to be going for the blue boy Sub-Zero. This proved to be a good choice as I got my first flawless victory, the very first round I played as Sub-Zero. Flawless victory is when you win a round without taking any damage. You get a little message pop up and some extra points. I don't really care about the points, but it does feel good getting the flawless victory regardless. Thanks to the freezing power of Sub-Zero, I took out Raiden pretty easily. Next up was old mate Kano. This one did not go so well. I lost both rounds very quickly, so back to Scorpion for another attempt. I got Kano down to such low health that the danger sign popped up signaling he probably only had 1 hit left. Somehow though he managed to turn that around on me and he took me out. Next 2 rounds went way better though. It was still close, but I beat Kano twice in a row to win the match. The next fight was against Johnny Cage. Things started out well with round 1 flawless victory. Round 2 went very well too. I managed to beat him nice and easy. But that's not all. This fight took place on a bridge level, so when it came time to finish him, I hit him with an uppercut and I knocked him down to the spiky pits below. Admittedly, it's a little bit lame on the Super Nintendo version. There's no blood or gore. In the arcade version, when they hit the spikes, blood shoots out and there's decapitated heads all around the place. It's pretty cool. And nothing like that on the Super Nintendo. Next up is the first special match of the game, the mirror match. It's not that special really, it's just a fight against the character you're playing as, but they have a slightly darker sprite. Round 1 went to me, round 2 to the enemy Scorpion, and round 3 started with me having clicked off the game window somehow. So, couldn't move, couldn't do anything, and that really screwed me up. I ended up losing round 3 as well. Oh, I'm an idiot. I clicked out of the screen, so my controls did not work. I'm gonna lose because of that. I tried again, and I finished him off round 1 with a flawless victory. Round 2 started out pretty strong, knocking him down to below half health, but then he managed to get a few hits in and it was all downhill from there. He won that round. Round 3 was a close one, but I got the win. Somehow though, I missed every single punch I threw in the finish him section, leaving him to just fall over from exhaustion. Ah, we cheesed it. I love it. Bonk. I didn't even hit him, that was sad. Oh, goodness me. Now we're up to the endurance rounds. There are 3 fights you have to win, and each round you have to defeat 2 fighters in a row. Your health doesn't replenish between the fighters either, so it gets very tough very quickly. First up was the team of Kano and Johnny Cage. Now I'm going to stop going through every single round of every fight at this point, we're going to be here all day. Rather, I'm just going to let you know how many times I lost, and I'll mention if anything cool happens, alright? I lost twice in a row with Scorpion, so I decided I'd switch things up and try out Raiden. Apparently, that's what was needed, because not only did I win, but one round I got a flawless victory beating both opponents without getting touched once. After this was another test your might, which I failed. The second of the endurance matches was against Johnny Cage and Sub-Zero. Johnny Cage was back because for some reason when I swapped to Raiden, the characters I was facing in the first endurance match changed. I got my ass kicked, so I decided to swap back to Scorpion because I couldn't make up my damn mind. I cheesed the hell out of that fight though, using spears and uppercuts to get a pretty easy victory. Next, we had Liu Kang and Sonya. First attempt went disgustingly bad. Liu Kang got a flawless victory on me round 1 and almost again on round 2. I lost another 4 times before I decided it was time to switch to Kano. Apparently, that was a change we needed to pull out the win though. Next up was the big fella himself. We were fighting Goro, and he was armed and ready to go. Heh, armed. Now the thing with Goro is, he's a dick. I swear, he is impossible to beat without cheesing the absolute crap out of the fight, but I was determined to try anyway. It did not go well. It's really hard to even get a single hit in before he kills you. It took me 9 grueling deaths before I finally managed to defeat Goro. But it wasn't a win to be proud of. I found out if you back against a wall and you just keep jumping backwards and kicking in the air, Goro will continually walk straight into your kicks. If you get the timing just right, there's nothing he can do to stop you. It's like his AI is broken and he'll just keep walking straight into your foot. Obviously, this is how I won the fight, because I swear it is impossible to win any other way. Ah well, on to the final boss fight, Shang Tsung. Now can I just say, how cool is the Shang Tsung sprite floating there like that when you start the match? The final fight is an interesting one, as he can transform into any character in the game to fight as. This includes Goro. Trust me when I say it sucks so hard when you're winning against him and then he transforms into Goro. My first fight against him went terribly, he took me out in a flash. Second fight was a much closer fight. I won the first round, then the second round he took me out super easily. The third round was anybody's game. It started out in my favour, getting a few good hits in, knocking him down to around half health before he got back on the offence and he knocked me down a peg. But somehow I managed to hold on and I defeated him. As I threw that final punch, the screen began flashing all different colours and all the characters' souls, at least I think that's what's happening, started falling out of Shang Tsung before he falls to the ground in defeat. I was crowned the supreme Mortal Kombat warrior. I had done it, I had finished Mortal Kombat in under an hour at right around the 56-minute mark. I'll tell you what, Scorpion's ending story is pretty damn depressing. Basically, he left behind his family to join the tournament, and even though he won, he is now the grand champion, he can never return to his family, and there is just nothing positive about this ending at all, the poor guy. Now, I just noticed reading this back, this could be a bit confusing. I just said he can't return to his family, and earlier I said his family's dead. Just to elaborate a bit, It was kind of retconned later on in the story that he thinks Sub-Zero killed his family, because in this original game, his family was actually still alive. But later, they thought it would be a good idea if his family was dead. Hence the confusion there. Anyway, roll credits! So how does the original Mortal Kombat hold up today? Is it aged like a fine wine? Or more like a disgusting old bottle of milk? Well, if you ask me, it's still an enjoyable game to play today, but it's not aged the best. It's missing a lot of quality of life improvements from the newer games, and it does feel a bit rough around the edges. I think it's still worth giving a shot though, for sure. For the gameplay, I rate it a 6 out of 10. This was really hard for me to rate, honestly, because I'm really conflicted. I love Mortal Kombat so much, but this game is pretty bare bones, which makes complete sense. It's an arcade port from the early 90s. The controls are pretty stiff at times, and it can be really hard to pull off special moves on the Super Nintendo controller. I'm guessing that could partially be because the game was designed around playing with a joystick on arcades. I still had a really good time playing it though. I still got to button mash and kick some ass, but there's a few things that was holding it back from being a great game. The music gets a 5.5 out of 10 for me. Honestly, I had to go back and listen to the soundtrack while writing this bit because the only track I could remember at all was the fighter select screen. Which is an absolute fucking tune, by the way. Other than that though, there's nothing really stand out in this game as far as music goes. They all sound somewhat similar. They're kind of boppy, kind of catchy, but it's not quite there. Like, the future Mortal Kombat games really nailed the soundtracks, but not so much in this first iteration. Just misses the mark a little bit. Again, this excludes the fighter select music because I could listen to that shit all damn day. Graphics? 5 out of 10. I love that they tried something different with these digitized graphics, and they do look pretty good, but I can't help but compare them to number 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo that look just so much cleaner, so much sharper. The characters have some pretty rough pixelation around the edges, and the background characters in some of the stages are pretty rough too. They were definitely heading in the right direction with the graphics, but they just weren't quite there yet, at least in my opinion. I do love the stop motion Goro though, he is so fucking cool. So as much as it pains me to say, overall, I'd have to rate Mortal Kombat a 6 out of 10. It really is a great game, and at the time of its release, it must have been absolutely mind-blowing, but it's not aged all that gracefully. Almost all of my complaints are fixed up in the 2 sequels on the Super Nintendo though. I also don't have my nostalgia goggles on for this game, as it wasn't one I played as a kid. So there's no little bump up in score for that either. Not that I should really be taking nostalgia into consideration when rating games, but I think we all do to a point. So if you want to play a Mortal Kombat game on the Super Nintendo, I'd say skip this one and go for 2 or 3. Alright, thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learnt a little something. If you did, I'd love it if you could like the video. It really does help out a small channel like this, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing. Means a lot. Alright, so now what everyone's been waiting for, what game we're going to be playing next. Next up, we're playing Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This is a childhood favourite of mine actually, I'm really excited for this one. Thanks again for watching, have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.